Hey y'all, it's Nash. Today is May 30th, 2016, and I am 2 years and 4 months on testosterone. This year is going to be my 10-year high school reunion, and I have been feeling a lot of anxiety and a lot of feelings about going. And for a long time I thought I wouldn't go, thinking that I didn't want to be the center of some gossip. I had all kinds of visions about like that moment when I walk into the venue and everyone kind of turns and looks, oh, who's here now? You know, and people are like, who is that? Or, oh, that's this person, and like, did you hear, you know, they transitioned? Or my sister actually was 2 years ahead of me at the same school, and I was telling her about my anxieties about maybe not going. And she was like, you should go, everyone was so nice to each other, like, don't worry about it. And I was like, that's all well and good, but like, what was the first thing you told me when you got in the car? I had picked her up from her reunion. And she was like, I don't remember, you know? And I was like, don't you remember you started just filling me in on all the gossip about everybody from your class? Who physically changed, right? Like who got fat and who got rich and, you know, who has like 10 kids and, you know, who did this and that. And it's like, imagine if any of those people didn't just like gain some weight or gain a bunch of money, but like transitioned, like became a man, right? And I don't want to be the like center of some huge gossip thing, you know. It just makes me really anxious to walk into a room where, you know, there's folks of different kind of belief systems and some conservative folks, and you know, I went to my college reunion, and while people are really well-intentioned and I adore those people, there was a lot of folks giving me like, they're like, you're so brave, and you know, I'm so inspired by you kind of speeches, and asking me all about transition and logistics of that. And I don't want to be having that conversation with folks, and so I've just been really anxious about it. And I did have like a little bit of a practice moment. My high school had a fundraiser here in the Bay Area, so I got to go and interact with some folks. There were a few folks at the event from my past, some folks I graduated with, and some teachers and things. And I found at that event, which was almost like a little trial run of my reunion, there was kind of three camps of people. There were the camp of folks who were like with it. They had, you know, thanks to social media, they knew my new name, they knew that I had transitioned, and they just rolled with it. It was very smooth. There was no barriers to being connected with those folks still. Then there was the camp of folks who hadn't heard, and so were reacting live to my appearance and my name, and folks, you know, having to hold that space when you're interacting with someone where they're like, you can see it in their eyes, they're processing really fast, they're thinking about what they should and shouldn't ask. Oh, Nash, great to see you. And, oh, you know, and they're kind of, depending on their experience interacting with trans folks, may be more or less uncomfortable. And so having to deal with that was not great, but it was okay. And I figured it out and had some funny interactions with folks, and sometimes had to do just like little corrections on my name or my pronoun or whatever. But luckily people didn't ask a bunch of inappropriate questions or anything. But if they had, I would have been able to kind of steer that conversation, and that's something I gained experience and practice at over the last 2 years. But then there was this third camp of people that I didn't anticipate existing. I did not realize. And this camp of folks are folks who didn't recognize me. Like, I don't look all that different. I mean, yeah, I look different, but like my facial features have stayed intact, as people's do. And I think this group of people, my analysis of this is that these are folks who are really invested in the gender binary to the point where it impacts the way they relate with folks, where like that's kind of like the first layer of interacting with a person, is they are processing, am I interacting with a man or a woman? And then they go on from there. And so they can't make the connection between this person that they used to know and this person that's standing right in front of them that they're interacting with. Even though my face looks pretty similar, and you think that they would be able to be like, that person is this person that I used to know by a different name and with some different sex characteristics, but they can't, because that person they were reading as a woman, and this person that they're interacting with now, they're reading as a man. And so that's just not an option. And I feel like that happens quite a bit where folks are walking through the world never assuming that somebody is trans. And so that's a really big piece of context to not bring to an interaction with a trans person, right? Like, especially one that you knew before they transitioned, like back in the past. And if people are walking around never assuming someone is trans, then they're never bringing that context to their interaction. And like, if I tell a story, sometimes like I don't censor myself around like a story that only makes sense if I was living as a girl, right? A story from my childhood. And I just tell it. I don't even think about it. And sometimes if somebody doesn't know I'm trans, I like see them being really confused and they can't fill in the gap. Like, why? This doesn't make sense because they're not thinking that trans people exist. Like, they're not including this person could be trans as an option in as they try to figure this out and make connections and get themselves unconfused. And maybe that'll change over time, where people will start to be, start to know more trans people. Trans visibility is increasing, obviously, so much in the last couple of years. And so I think more and more people are going to be able to bring that context to their interaction and say like, oh, maybe this person is trans and that would make this make sense. But back to this third camp of people who didn't recognize me. There's one person who was a classmate of mine who was like, what was your name again? Did we graduate together? And like, this is a person who definitely would remember me. Had I not transitioned, there's no doubt in my mind they would know exactly who I was, because we knew each other well. We went to school together for 7 years, right? And so really quickly, I had to think like, how am I going to make the connection for this person? Ideally, I didn't want to say my old name. Like, it gives me a lot of anxiety. It's kind of triggering to say my old name out loud. And so I was thinking real quick as we were doing this kind of dance, how do I tell them this? But it became kind of ridiculous if I was going to dance around it and say like, I did these things and that, because the reason he didn't remember me was because I'm trans. And so I just had to come out and nip that one, and so I was like, well, I used to go by this, and I transitioned, I'm trans, so that's why my name is different and I look a little different. Right, like, and you can tell he's like trying to bury all these like inappropriate questions that are coming up for him, and he's like, keep it cordial and like, let's just move on with the conversation. And he did a really good job. And there's a lot of folks who wouldn't even try to push those questions out. They would have come vomiting up at splatting me in the face. But he did a good job. I did a good job. We like moved on, had a great conversation. There was another person who used to be a coach of mine, actually, for years, and we went on bus trips. Like, this guy knows me. Like, we were tight for years, and he didn't recognize me at all. And for him, I decided not to give him any clues. And like, we were interacting, and I could tell he was kind of looking at my name tag, and like, how the hell do I know this person? But I was like, hey, it's good to see you. How's retirement? Blah, blah, blah. And like, oh, you're living out here now. And we were talking, but he's like, he was the girls' soccer coach. So he's not thinking like this guy was a player of mine, but I was talking to him about soccer and all this stuff. And like, he was just so confused. And I was like, well, it was great to see you again. Like, take care. I don't know why I didn't just say like, I used to go by this, don't you remember me? I was the goalkeeper, but I just like went without, and I think I wasn't sure how he was going to react. I wasn't sure how to bring it up, and part of me was like, who cares, like, who cares if he's older, he probably is thinking like, this is just another student I've forgotten, and it wasn't devastating to me to walk away from that conversation having him not remember me, so I just played it off. A big fear of mine when I was questioning whether to transition or not was a loss of continuity, was having to cut off who I was and become kind of a new person. And for some trans people, like, that's the best way to go about this. It's kind of disappear for a little bit and come back and start new relationships and completely disconnect from their old life and that name and all of those things. And for me, that was a fear. It's important to me to keep that continuity. It's important to me to be able to interact with somebody from my past and have them know that like, we had experiences and we had this relationship that we built years ago, and I'm still that person, and we are still connected in that way. And for the most part, I've been able to maintain that. but it's not without those awkward stumbling blocks where like our society is just not set up for trans folks. And for the most part, people don't think about trans people existing. I mean, most folks don't think they've ever interacted with a trans person, which is more than likely untrue. When that context is not brought to you in interaction, like you have to bring it up. You have to do that and then deal with whatever comes your way because of it, because of that news that somebody's dealing with live. Thank goodness for social media, because I think as I go to my high school reunion this year, a lot of folks, maybe not most folks, but a lot of folks are going to have already gotten the news, already processed it, and I'm not going to have to like bear that burden. And hopefully I can surround myself with those people as I'm walking around and interacting with those who are in camp 2 or 3. Yeah. Alright, yeah, just a little thoughts on, being trans and running into people from your past and, I'm saying, oh, I actually go by Nash now, or actually I used to go by that, and try to navigate that. Yeah, there's no one right way to do it, and it's not simple, that's for sure. And it's not always safe or comfortable either, but do what you gotta do. Signing off for now, see you later.